Nice to see you.
Hi, Sean.
So, well, should we just jump out to? I was thinking let's just start off with our little random connections. What do you think? Let's do it. All right. Random away.
All right. Here we go. I'll try not to cut it off too early this time.
Yeah. That's my favorite time of the day.
Was short.
I guess internet is the struggle today.
Yeah, isn't it always? And then it's too short.
Sorry about that.
Always like cuts.
My big takeaway from mine was Rich Copsey has great hair. Don't you all agree? Like he just
I
has.
know Rich always has great hair.
Let's go check it out. Where's Rich?
Did
I'll
you
have
say
to.
gray or gray?
Now everybody,
It's pretty gray.
everybody look at Rich. Oh, okay, yeah, very nice hair.
Good hair. Yeah.
All right. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I sure did. Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
For once,
Was that a good?
it wasn't cut off in mid-sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So hey, listen today. Hey, is Chris Stanton on?
Hey, John.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's happening in the world of Harvard and all the work?
I think no one's getting anything done with the election. There's so much mind share on the uncertainty and the crazy dramatic volatility with odds and prediction markets that I have gotten very little sleep this week and have done nothing but follow that.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, me too.
So, Chris, does that mean you can tell us who won?
Yeah, what's the prediction?
What's the data?
Yeah,
No.
what's the date, Chris?
Yeah. It's crazy times, but I was tracking the betting markets overnight when the returns were coming in, and you saw like an 80-20 swing for Trump back to Biden in the course of like 4 hours. It was insane.
Wow, crazy, really crazy. Well, hey, thanks, Chris. Hey, is Jen on the call today? I don't know if Jen made it or not. So
I haven't seen him.
No, okay. How about, hey, Greta? Greta's got an event next week, and we're going to actually kind of invite everybody to Greta's panel next week, which I think is going to be awesome. Greta, you want to give us a little preview of what's going to happen and who you've got deemed colleagues?
That sounds good. I'm actually very proud of the people that have said yes and are the panelists. I've been asked by the business school to organize a panel on, like the future of work. We now called it the future of recruitment, but we're just going to talk about open talent models and how, digital transformation of work, how that's happening. Everything we spoke about in these nice calls you have been organizing, John, in the past couple of months. And I'm proud to introduce our panelists. It's Paul Estes, who everybody knows. John Healy has very kindly agreed to take part from Cali. Then we have from Upwork, the chief economist, Adam Ozenek. From Toptail, the chief economist, Eric Stedler. And I saw you're in the call today. Hi, Eric. Then we have Michael Kearns from Cent, and we have Janine Ledger from Deloitte Pixel. And I'm very happy to have this group of excellent speakers together. And I'm preparing a couple of questions that we can debate among the panel. And I'm about to send out the emails to them. So if you haven't heard from me yet, you're in the call, you will get a message tonight. And I'm super excited. So this is part of the business school's series on leadership in extraordinary times. It has a broad audience. It's live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, the website of the business school. All the chat channels are monitored where you can add questions. And it's set up like everybody can submit questions, and we have like Q&A time in between the different debates. So super excited about that. It's 1 hour that we will be speaking. And I spoke with John and Brandon that perhaps, if we have more questions coming up, if there are things we would like to talk about a bit more, I will also try and be in the call next week, and maybe we can then reflect a bit and share some more insights and opinions about that.
That's great, Greta. Thanks. Hey, could you just remind us what the title of the panel is?
So at the moment, the marketing team agreed on the future of recruitment. I suggested a different title, the digital transformation of work, but let's see what happens, what the ultimate title will be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Hey, Brandon, could you maybe we could just put the link in the chat to make sure everybody's got access to it, but super excited for that. Hey, also, thanks again for being a part of the summit. And Brandon, those files are up and available on the site now if anybody wants to review those, right?
What files do you mean?
Just a whole file from all the talks that we had.
So if you need a copy of anything from the event, just email me and let me know. But if you had a username and password for the Run the World platform, you can log back in and access any talk.
Great. And if you don't have access to that, just shoot Brandon a note and be able to get to it. Hey, so I was just, I thought just one of the things I would chat about for a sec, because I was on a call with Dave Messenger yesterday, super impressed, Dave, with your presentation and just kind of what, the way you guys at Top Coder are kind of eating your own dog food, kind of building everything you're doing with your own technology and just seeing how that works. But one of the things I was kind of reflecting on before the call that Dave and I were on is just what are the trends that we're seeing. And I just wanted to throw these out there and maybe get a little dialogue going about them and seeing if we're missing anything. One of the things that I've been seeing is it just feels like within the enterprise space, we're seeing a shift from bottom up, more tactical approaches to C-level strategy integration of open talent. I think that's kind of I really like seeing that. It's like not just like, let's use some platforms to solve some things, but let's figure out kind of what the architecture is, right? And then, I love John Healy's, talk last week on the World Employment Congress. And it's really great to see that portion of the marketplace kind of look at platforms positively as a positive innovation. I think that's a really, really great trend. I don't know if you guys caught, but Upwork just announced that they're doing some productization of their talent. And I think that's a really interesting trend. Obviously, Vertisent's doing a lot of the same things, and I'm sure a number of other platforms are looking at that. But I think that you'll see more of that instead of just selling talent itself, selling kind of the productization of the talent. And then vertical integration, I thought it was super interesting. Actually, I was on a call with Stephen Lepke, who's on the call today, actually. Hey, Stephen, talking about Aero Plus. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with Aero Plus, but I just love kind of the idea that, here's a big company that's using a kind of a platform solution to solve some of their problems. Hey, Stephen, you want to just chat a little bit, just to kind of, for those people that don't know what Aero Plus is, it'd be awesome. Kind of maybe a couple seconds on what Aero is, and then what's the problem that you're trying to solve with Aero Plus.
Yeah, so Aero is the largest Fortune 100 company you've never heard of before. We're an electronics distributor, and we help service all the large tech companies, Fortune 500 and beyond. So, some of our clients are the Boeings, John Deere's, Samsung's, Panasonic's, kind of you name it, household item. You've probably used something that Aero has touched at least 5 times before you even got your coffee in the morning. We're really deep into the supply chain of technology and innovation overall. We ended up seeing that there was a really big need for talent, specifically within the electrical engineering space, for innovators, small businesses, and even mid-sized businesses that Aero hadn't traditionally served, but really wanted to serve from a supply chain and also from an expertise perspective. So we actually partnered with freelancer.com to build our own marketplace called Aero Plus. And it's a very specific, deep vertical electronics engineering marketplace. And so our goal is to build out the best and the brightest and bring that supply on, and help then our customers and innovators tap into that expertise, both from the supply side and the engineering side, as well as our supply chain side, to really spur innovation. So we've helped customers who received quotes in the $60,000 to $100,000 range for basic prototyping and design, and we were able to work that down to a more reasonable area in their budget of like 20 grand. And then once they got those initial prototypes and designs done, they were able to hand that over to effectively our manufacturing arm, and we were able to help them manufacture thousands of units. Really, building a full end-to-end solution for them. So that's kind of what we're doing with Aero Plus, and super excited about being here, part of Open Assembly. I met John 3 years ago at Harvard when they had the Crowd Innovation Summit, and really we've just been doubling down on this strategy and how do we help open up the world's talent to the world problem solvers and really trying to connect all the dots together, and get through a lot of the friction and noise that tends to slow up not just small companies, but big companies too. I mean, we're as much solving our own problem as Aero is a big company as we are helping smaller companies solve their own problems. So yeah, that's our plan.
Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. I think, what you guys are doing at Aero definitely is at the cutting edge of like the adoption issues we talk about here, and, the stuff that, Chris and Greta and I spend so much time about it, like how are, big incumbent companies going to take kind of these new opportunities and use them in a big way. And I just love the work you're doing. It's really going to be fun to kind of see how that all rolls out over the next few years. Yeah, and it feels like, that meeting that happened, 2018 was kind of the beginning of all this, right? Like the Crowd Academy. And man, it feels like a lifetime ago. So much has happened.
So much has happened.
Yeah. Hey, the other deal that I found super interesting is the Vistaprint 99 design deal. Super interested, and I thought it was great on the call to have Ricky on the call. Although he was talking to some other folks, Ricky really was great from Vistaprint, and I noticed I talked to Ava Messling from 99 Designs the other day, and she sent me the new 99 Design research that you guys just completed, Laura, right? And I know you were in charge of that, so I thought maybe you could share some insights, some of the research, and also make some comments maybe if you want to about your connection with Vistaprint, because I think that's going to be a really interesting thing. But for those of you who don't know Vistaprint, they own the market for small business marketing collateral from business cards and things like that. And I think it feels, from the folks I've talked to, like this is a great opportunity for them to digitally transform themselves in the connection with 99 Designs. So take it away, Laura.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. Yeah, and we announced the acquisition sort of 1st of October, so it's all kind of gone by rather fast. But yeah, teams are in the midst of planning. It's all gone very smoothly so far. So yeah, great, vision for 2021 and beyond. And I think that the vision of Vistaprint and 99 Designs aligned perfectly in terms of being able to, we want to help small businesses grow and get all of the services that they need. So yeah, it's all Ricky is awesome, agree. And I think the team at Vista seem great. We've been working with a lot of different touch points across the business. I've been talking with a lot of their corporate services people as well, and I know Eva has been kind of getting deep into the range of sort of Simpress printing, on-demand printing services as well. So we're sort of understanding a little bit more as well what's about, how each other work at all elements of the business. So yeah, so far so good. Yeah, excited. It's very exciting times ahead. And as you mentioned, there's also a lot of great work that all the teams within 99 Designs have been doing this year. And I think the freelancer report is one of them. I'm not sure if anyone on the call has had a chance to read it already, but this is the second time we've done this kind of study. Last year, we had a really good participation rate amongst the creative freelancer community as well. And this year we had over 11,000 people participate in that from 147 countries. So, it's great for us to be able to understand more about our freelance talent, how they feel, where they're at, where they live and what they do. But also, I think this year, what we wanted to understand was, in a year like no other, how were people kind of feeling about that? How had it affected them? How do they see the future? And so one thing that was really kind of a top level learning for us from the report was that almost 2/3 of the community feel extremely optimistic about their future in the design industry. So that's a really positive sign. And we think the underlying factor in that is that, freelancers by nature have to be very flexible and they have to self-manage, and that drive and resilience is setting them up for long-term success in a world that is constantly in flux and, are prepared for things that come at them. And so amidst the pandemic, and the social upheaval that we've seen in 2020, freelancing actually remains aspirational, which is a trend that we saw last year. But this year we saw just 6% of designers were saying that they freelance because they can't find work elsewhere, which is a really small percentage. And again, flexibility and freedom remain the top motivations for freelancers around the world. So really, really, positive feedback. And so that gives us a lot of confidence in how we're doing things. But there's loads of really great outtakes in the report. I know John shared it in the email yesterday, but 3 things that I thought might be interesting insights for this group were, number one, we asked a lot about how personal and professional lives had collided this year with homeschooling, et cetera, and how that had impacted our community, especially parents. And actually an amazing 48% of parents and primary caregivers said that having the kids at home had a positive effect on them professionally, which is super interesting, compared to 27% who reported a negative effect. Also, secondly, this was kind of the year that remote work went mainstream to a large degree. And so we're seeing some interesting findings for what we see might be long-term impacts on the industry. So interestingly, 30% of freelancers reported that client collaboration and communication actually improved during the pandemic. So largely we see, freelancers are kind of used to in many ways self-managing and working remote, and actually the global workforce had to make this flip to remote work, and freelancers largely saw a positive gain there. Also 41% of freelancers said that they would consider moving to a smaller town or regional areas if companies embrace remote work permanently. So some good news there for regional and rural communities, which I know is something that's we've discussed a lot in this group too. We also asked a lot about learning and education in the group as well. And one really interesting stat was that 1 in 5 designers believe that a formal education is crucial to succeed. So the importance of self-directed learning in the design industry is clear amongst our base. So it's on the blog. There's a press kit. Feel free to share it. But if you've got any questions about any of the data in the report, it looks amazing. One of our designers also created the report too. Really great to be able to get this out and share it. And we're open to thoughts and comments from the group.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So Brandon, thanks for putting that in the chat. Really, anybody wants to grab it, just grab it and ask, you can connect with Laura. Also, Brandon put Laura's connection in the chat as well. That's awesome. Hey, I've got some other things too, but I wanted to get some reaction to kind of this kind of verticalization, right? That's happening, like outside companies getting more into these open talent marketplaces, both Aero and Vistaprint. Greta, Chris, do you see how do you how does that fit in the context of the research?
So one of the things that we found in the freelancer case was that organizations like Aero Plus, I think, tended to resonate pretty well with other people who we interviewed, but who didn't end up having quotes in the case. This has kind of been my mental model of at least a way forward for platforms to gain some type of traction, which is to set up an entity that provides verticalized services, but that complement sort of the core of an organization. I thought that this was brilliant when I heard about it. I would actually be interested to hear more from Stephen around an update in terms of gross platform services or how much volume is going through Arrow Plus now, because this fits pretty well with my own mental model.
Yeah, great, Chris. Greta, any thoughts?
Sorry, John, you froze. Can you repeat the question?
I just said any other thoughts from you on the, to add from what Chris said on the Arrow Plus and Vistaprint, verticalization of like seeing outside companies like embed platforms inside their companies as a way to innovate, as a way to just digitally transform themselves.
It's a very interesting development, and this when I spoke with people in the platform space in the Netherlands, my parent country where I'm from, that's how they originally thought about platforms. That just they thought about previously having the job boards, thinking that they should develop their own platforms. And indeed, in the study we're doing at the moment, and having spoken with a lot of people that are part of the call, the weekly calls, this is one of the models where they see like potential for platform models to take off, is to develop a standard set of technologies that companies can use as as a software as a service agreement, and then build their own talent platforms. This might work great in certain verticals. When I think like the key challenge I see is what works for generalist work where you need a set of extra hands, or really specialist work. Different models might become might become dominant. And what you see now, the ecosystem, there's a lot of experimentation with platforms being more on the corporate side, the demand side, or more on the freelancer side, being more an FMS, freelancer management system, or like being the back office of independent professionals. And then you have like these big platforms in the middle that may perhaps resemble more of a traditional staffing agency as an intermediary, and they might specialize in one category and become really good at that, or they might go into multiple ones and try to become big in several ones of them. It's now we see these different models. None of these models are dominant, and we just have to see by time like which one wins. And here it might be that because it is work, and this is something I want to emphasize, the traditional platform strategy insights of how to grow a platform might not work in the same way as, for instance, video game consoles or like video cassette recorders or credit cards that people have previously studied, and all the theory about how to grow big as a platform, all the theories have been built upon. When it's about work, the dynamics might be different, and I'm super interested in following this in the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's great. Great comments. Hey, Jeff and Steve, I mean, you guys, Kosi's kind of the granddaddy of this strategy, right? Like you guys have been doing this for a long time. As you reflect on kind of seeing the momentum here, any kind of learnings or thoughts that you guys might have to share?
Jeff, you want to go first? I always like to hear what Jeff says.
Me too.
Yeah, the vertical integration idea is I think Steve can talk about current data, but I think it's finally taken root where people now think of using open as a tool. And the other vertical part of it, from my perspective, is we had a lot of interest in using open at different levels. So we were at the project management, technology, search function, and now people are talking about, training tools. It fills in with the skill set now with open talent that, Steve and Lynn have brought into COSI, but they were actually talking about procurement and strategic acquisitions. And so this whole idea of open up and down the organizational ladder has taken root pretty well, I think. But Steve, over to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've found some niches like tech search where we've got a yet to contract and some kind of basic matching for open innovation piece. But in the open talent piece, we're really finding our like niches for it. So data science, we're starting some microtasking stuff that is actually, we're starting to see this idea of a pipeline and a couple of vendors that are doing that. Software algorithm work, we're starting to see that. So it kind of has to fit into the piece, but there's definitely, given we kind of shotgunned it to the whole organization, right? And so open talent, open innovation can do lots and lots of things. And what we're finding now is we have to carve off the specifics if we're hoping to make that pipeline piece, because those actually then have to fit to a very specific product. But we're seeing that. And I think the other thing we're seeing is on the platform sides, more and more complex permutations. One of the really interesting things that we've seen over just the last month or so is within our 19 contractors that we have, our 19 open and innovation and open talent platforms on our Noise 2 contract, is they've started partnering in really interesting ways to give us more complex support. So whereas, you know, might have just been driven data or top coder before, now it's Hero X and driven data, or you know, Tech Connect and somebody else. So it's that combination. And I think we'll start to see these communities start to actually use each other to get more complex work done. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
And John, just one other quick comment. You know, we would have liked to have had open talent platforms back in 2008, 2009, because we were forever needing very specific skill sets in areas that we didn't have in the organization, but you only needed them for a certain period of time. And so the only way to find people was word of mouth, who knew somebody at the university, you know, things like that. And so even for the technical skill set, it would have worked well, but we just didn't have that access back then.
Yeah, great thoughts. Hey, Steve, I know I noticed in the chat you kind of threw out like, hey, let's talk about Prop 22. What's everybody thinking? Like any thoughts? Sheila, you're shaking your head. Like lean into this one.
I actually haven't seen the news. I haven't looked, so I have no updates, but I'm interested. I'm hoping somebody else knows.
Steve, launch into it, man.
I believe it passed in that it you could classify them as independent contractors, and so they didn't have to pay all the benefits and everything. So basically Uber and Lyft won. But I think what that means for us is open talent really, the traditional concept of workers need to be paid, you know, or everyone needs the fully loaded benefits from the company, that is one of the huge barriers to this new kind of open work. And it's a little nonsensical in some ways, because I really believe people need a solid base to actually operate from, in terms of being able to take sick leave, being able to do all those things. But maybe that's a compensation thing, right? Maybe that's about making sure people have enough work and enough compensation to cover that, rather than these constructs that are really from the previous generation of work models, right? Of organizational models that have tied those things to your job. So it's going to be really interesting, because there are real needs of people that have to be met here. But I think there's a real kind of hugging of the old constructs, which is your employer provides you everything, versus your employer provides you the resources for everything, and then those get tied in. But there's real logistics around that, right? The normal person can't necessarily do all of what a HR department does in terms of finding all those plans and doing all that. So there's got to be work done, and I really see this next few years as being this kind of clash of what we have come from to where we're going, right? And how do we make that work? So that was probably way more than you wanted, but
always great. Hey, Shears.
Yeah, no, I was jumping in. I mean, so you know, again, I'm a strong proponent that it shouldn't have passed, but I mean, I think again, we didn't. You know, what I look at this as Uber and Lyft didn't come to the table with the AB5 legislation that was put forward. And they spent $250 million to sort of past this without giving sort of, again, really what I would have hoped to have seen was just better sort of coming to the table, figuring out how to work together, how to enable people that are spending 40, 50 hours a week, on their platforms, and providing them some sort of benefits. Because again, with those sorts of wages, it sort of falls on the taxpayer at the end of the day to then cover these individuals for healthcare, for any sort of situations to go awry. And I think, again, if I look at this was just an opportunity to really have addressed it through a different means, but the electorate chose a different path to go forward with it.
That's a great input. Anybody else have any thoughts on Prop 22? Yeah, jump in.
I know if I can,
Yeah.
very quickly. I tend to be a little bit of an outlier when it comes to freelancing. I mean, I do it, and so far I'm still gaining weight. So, but I have some real concerns about two elements. One is in terms, I'm an attorney, and I have recently begun doing a deep dive into the future of my profession, because I have done some e-discovery work, and I find a lot of new practitioners with what I consider to be monumental debt, and yet they're faced with a marketplace, at least that the research shows, exhibits three trends. One of which is an increasing reluctance on the part of potential clients to pay. Basically, clients are trying to pay less for the same services. Two, more people are doing what these young people would do, the LegalZooms, RocketLawyer, but there are other platforms, and now there are cognitive argument algorithms being developed that will replace a lot of what these folks would do. And finally, well, that leads me to the third point. I think technology is having a dramatic effect on what these young lawyers are facing coming into the marketplace. They are faced because the traditional pyramidal market structure, where there are some equity owners on top who basically make a living off of indentured servants who are joyfully working themselves to death, and the one until they're too expensive to keep on as an employee, and then they are brought on as an equity owner. So they're moved from the debt portion of the balance sheet to the equity portion of the balance sheet. They're much more affordable, and I do see that, quite frankly. And I'm not. I think I haven't experienced the vertical. I've only tangentially experienced the vertical integration part of it, but I have experienced, in a number of instances, the development of firms that are designed their business model in a way that basically takes advantage of what I would consider a labor market or crowding. And I think if you really look at, moving from provision of legal services to service providers generally, I think if you, and I can't pretend to have done adequate research, but I've done some into, for example, the gaming of the system that it takes place in Uber and Lyft and the other service providers. In terms of, so I'm very concerned that the compensation structure is commoditizing what historically has been a service, and no one's being prepared for it. I think what I'm saying is, I think one of the critical functions of a group like this is to prepare persons coming in, a new person, young lawyers, young service providers, for a dramatically and drastically and quickly changing marketplace for services, and making sure that they understand that they are going to have to be very light on their feet, and the only ones that are going to really survive with anything amounting to self-respect and the ability, or the at least expectation, to gain as much weight as I have, are going to have to be willing, very aware of the marketplace trends, very aware of technology implications. For example, I am firmly convinced, based on the research that I've done, that in a decade, the traditional lawyer will no longer exist, period. And I think that that's not necessarily limited to the practice of law. And I think that's something that I haven't heard addressed. Open source, open has been, I mean, the benefits of open has been described primarily, from what I've seen, in terms of its advantages from only one side of the platform. And I would like to see the advantages and disadvantages and the obligations of all of us, both either as academics or business people, to the next generation, in educating them about open sourcing and open work.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Alan. That's really awesome. I think, you bring up so many good points. I really, as I reflect on your comments, it feels like, there's this kind of, there's two systems at work, right? I mean, there's an overhang of like really expensive educational, need to get a law degree, whereas the pricing, like the outcome of like lower and lower prices, and even paralegals being totally, automated and all those things. So I think we're, in many industries, we're in a really difficult, transition period, right? I mean, I think that's what we see generally in the culture in the world, is that we're kind of, there's a bunch of folks trying to hold on to the past and the way it worked, and there are a bunch of folks pushing into the future. And I don't think we've reached a consensus, nor I think we've actually, none of us have the answer. We're gonna all have to get down in the mud and figure this out together. And I definitely take your point, I think it's really important that we have more of a freelancer's voice in this discussion. So thanks, really appreciate it.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
John, I want to jump in and say one thing, if I may. And I don't think we have time to discuss this today, but maybe we could earmark a future meeting to talk about benefits. Prop 22 and everything going on with Uber and Lyft and AB5, it's in some part about who pays for the benefits. And Open Talent itself has that question. And honestly, I don't see an easy answer, but it would be good to brainstorm that at some point in the future.
Sheila, that's what kind of piqued my interest, because I think I agree. I mean, I just decided to stop living in my 401k, so I sold our house. Yeah. But bottom line is, I think John, we do have contrary trends. One, we're saying that freelancers, open source talent, open talent, should assume more of the responsibility, and I agree. I mean, if you're going to be a freelancer or an independent contractor or a business person, that's part of your deal. On the other hand, we're faced with a marketplace that is constantly both commoditizing the services that we're providing, and at the same time, there's a tremendous down pressure on compensation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I think those are really well thought of. And Sheila, I like your idea of let's definitely take this into a bigger discussion for sure. I think part of that is a good transition into just to talk a little bit about the Center for the Transformation of Work. I mean, obviously this is like a huge topic that we want to focus on at CTW and we kind of get things going. I feel like we've got some great momentum, and really appreciate the heads of all the working streams that are doing things. You know, one of the things that I think I mentioned it last time, you know, hats off to Alistair, who's on the call today, to put that challenge out. Like, can we, you know, can the Center for the Transformation of Work be dedicated to transforming work for 1 billion people by 2025? I don't know how people feel about that, but I'd love to get a kind of consensus on the, you know, in the chat. And Alistair, that's kind of how you describe that, right?
John, don't get me started. Like when I spoke with you last week, I said, like, why don't we fund the World Economic Forum? We're doing the same thing as them. Can we partner with them? It's like, how do we change the world?
Right.
So I'm super, super excited about the ability of the amount of intellectual capability in this community to transform the world in the next 10 years. It's just, it's magnetic. It's amazing. So that's part one. Part two is like, we shouldn't be asking other people how we participate in the future of knowledge. We should create it. So I noticed that there's a massive gap in the World Economic Forum. They're creating this huge kind of thing over the next decade, and they don't have the answers of how you're going to create that. But what I learned is that inside the community of like this open assembly, we have the answers. We should just pick up the phone and just like say, how do we do this together? It's not difficult, it's fun. And I had a conversation with somebody today in New Zealand, and they asked me a question like, how do you connect a moonshot of 1 billion people to a practical 100-day plan? And I said, yeah, that's okay, it's fine. I mean, you can't, like, never lose sight of your vision, but always focus on the next 100 days.
Yeah.
And that is super important. So, you know, when I spoke to that person, it was very easy to connect with the government, and like, we can do the same thing elsewhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. I think those are good points. Well, certainly that's what I'm super, you know, I really appreciate Alistair's point of view, and I'm super intrigued with, you know, making that our vision, or at least our North Star, you know, is to transform work. And I think then it addresses some of the things, you know, some of the things that you talked about as well. And so, you know, Alan, that you mentioned. So if we can really focus on how do we transform work for 1 billion people by 2025, I think it's within our skill set, and I think we can do it if we all lean into it together and create some standards and create some accreditation and certification standards, and just get everybody aligned. It'll make a huge, huge effect. So just an update on kind of more tactical stuff. We're starting a weekly heads of the work stream meetings on Mondays, and shoot me a note if anybody else wants to join that. It's been, you know, we had a good call last week. We're trying to shoot for Monday mornings, and I encourage all the heads, as I said to the heads of the working groups, like to start having weekly meetings. We'll start leaning in and creating some guardrails so we can start feeling like we're getting some stuff done. We're also aligning around an effort to create an MVP of the site, so get it up and running, to kind of describe what we're thinking about as far as how do we create more momentum. And I think I shared with you guys last time this analogy I've been using is that, you know, how do we fit together Open Assembly, our group, and then the bigger group of CTW. To me, it's like a rock concert, right? It's like a Fish concert or a Grateful Dead concert, where, you know, the audience is the CTW, and we want to welcome in anybody that's, you know, that's working or interested in the future of work, and anybody that's really interested in, you know, the talent economy, and let, you know, like a Fish or a Grateful Dead concert, you know, let the burritos be sold, let the t-shirts be sold, like really promote the creativity from the community, right, as much as we can. And then, you know, I think that Open Assembly, you guys, we need to serve as kind of the stage, right? Like, we need to serve as a backstage pass, the band, like the creating, kind of pushing the community and the audience forward. So we're working on that paradigm and how to create some simple ways. I really feel like, you know, we've had so much good momentum, and I'm so grateful for the work that everybody's done on the working groups. It's been amazing. And I think now, you know, we're just hitting that stride of like, okay, how do we really narrow our focus and start ticking some things off to start really getting done to progress. But anyway, I love anybody who wants to join a working group, please. I think Brandon's got a and we're getting kind of, like I said, more organized. But a special thanks to the folks that have been leading these, because they've been putting a lot of work into them and thinking a lot and starting to connect the tissues between things. I know we've got like 5 or 6 minutes left. Anything else? I mean, any announcements, any thoughts, anything anybody else want to mention? I see so many folks I haven't heard from for a while. Like Rich, what's going on down there in Houston?
Don't ask. Let's wait until after.
Okay, we'll do that.
Just great hair right now.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the hair and I'll worry about the, we got other things right now, but
okay, good.
It's happening. It's happening slower than I had hoped.
Yeah.
Separate conversation, or pick a few brains here on this from this call.
John, I'll add in just one thing that I'm noticing is in my conversations with people is more and more focus on, I guess really what kind of is highlighted in Kareem and Marco's book, Competing the Age of AI. More and more of the conversation is about that digital native, that company, that transition. How are people turning the boat to becoming digital natives? And then it relates back into, because that you've got to use open talent to actually make that transition, that you're not going to be able to do it with your existing. And it's just been a really interesting kind of back and forth that just keeps coming up, because most organizations don't have any idea of how big of a change to their labor force it's going to be to become something like an Ant Financial, right? And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch, because I think that's probably going to lead the way on use of open talent. So just a thought.
Yeah, I totally love that. I mean, I think that, one of the things that I hadn't said, and I'll put it in the chat here, is there's a big conflict there. So here, let me just share this for everybody. But I think that's, Jen and I are starting to frame up the idea for a book, and that's really where the folks, yeah. No. I'll talk. I don't know why we're having problems here. Anyway, okay, is that better?
Better now, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know exactly what's going on. Yeah, so I think that's such a good point, Steve. I'm going to drop this Deloitte case study in the or maybe Brandon, you can drop the Deloitte case study in the Zoom chat. I think that's important. That's an important thing what Steve talked about. Am I still cutting out?
Better now.
Better, yeah, kind of in and out. Well, anyway, I think it's time to end. Maybe the gods, the Wi-Fi gods, are saying that I need to shut up. And anybody else have any last comments?
Just John, this is Brandon. Just a reminder: next week's call will be a Zoom, or I don't know if it's Zoom or what platform it'll be on, but it will be tuning into Gretta's conversation. It's the same day and time as this call, so look for that on your Google Calendar invite from me. And then the following week, we'll have Gretta on to talk more about the panel and have a deeper conversation amongst our group about what she and her team covered.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much. As always, sorry there was a little technical difficulty at the end. Love this group. It's awesome. Love you guys, and stay safe and don't get too anxious over the results as they come in. I know it's a trying time for all of us, but anyway, have a good weekend. Talk soon. Talk next week.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye, guys. Cheers.